K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
It got up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag because we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. We never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We fish the waters and we hunt the lands. We forge the steel with our own two hands. With what we've got, we do the best we can. We're Americans.
It's time now for the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show on K98 Talk. Now, here's Grouchy.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the Conservative Curmudgeon Show. Tonight, we're going to be discussing human and sex trafficking, and we're dedicating the whole hour to this. Why? Well, first of all, it's a very important topic, and it needs more light put on it. It needs more effort put into it to end it, and it needs to all happen a year ago, or 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, because it's ridiculous that this is going on today in this world. And to that end, we're going to be bringing in a very special guest, and we're just going to go ahead and, as soon as Katie gets online, we're going to bring Katie on. Katie works with trafficking victims in helping them, and she's going to offer her insight and knowledge into what she sees and what they need from that end of the aspect. I'm going to be handling more of the geopolitical end of this aspect. So if you want to call in and you want to make donations, you want to help somehow, Katie's going to be the expert to tell you how to do that. If you have questions about the rule of law and how it does or doesn't function related to this topic, I am by no means an expert, but I will do my best to field your questions. And if I don't have the answer, I will tell you I don't have the answer, but I will find that answer for you and get back to you with it. As always, the call lines are open throughout the entire show. And that number is 408-681-8255. That's 408-681-8255. Now, before we get rolling into the details of tonight's show, thank you those of you that are still with us and tuning in left over from America Off the Rails with the Rowdy One, Rick Robinson. I want to remind everybody that you are tuned in to K98Talk.com. It is Wednesday, which means you get the big trifecta of conservative talk. You just left Rowdy Rick. You're on with me now. And then coming up, you get Bunny and Jason. So you can't lose right here on Wednesday nights with K98 Talk. And I am told that Katie is online with us now. So Katie, good evening. How are you tonight?
Good evening. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure. I don't know if you got to hear the brief intro I gave you, but go ahead and tell us a little about what you do. And if you want to mention specifically where you do it, that is perfectly fine too. And what you see on your end of this spectrum of this horrible, horrible crime of human/sex trafficking.
Well, I work with victims in South Florida, and I work with Glory House of Miami. We are a home that we don't have a home yet, but what we do is we service the girls right now. We are basically fully funded, and what that means is we're not relying on any governmental grants, because a lot of them have stipulations like you have to take the girls to Planned Parenthood if they're pregnant, and we don't, we're faith-based. We don't believe in that. So,
yeah, okay, great.
I think what I see is the main issue is that they have nowhere to go. They're seeking shelter. They're seeking, just their basic necessities, their needs to be met. And traffickers, also known as pimps, they meet those needs. They're also looking for love. They don't get that at home. So, that's what they're seeking. So, we see a lot of American citizens. We haven't really come across any labor trafficking victims down here. But I know that's common in other areas like Virginia and New York. But yeah, it's a major issue.
Last night you pointed out the home in Virginia in Charlottesville. That was a nonprofit, much like you guys. I wasn't aware that they were seeing the labor side of it, but that's interesting to hear. And I'm really surprised to hear you guys haven't seen more of the labor side of it.
Well, I think we did see a lot of that in the early 2000s. I'm sure you guys have heard of the tomato fields. There were a lot of Mexican migrant workers that were being trafficked on the fields in Immokalee, Florida. But we've pretty much put a lot of laws in place that protect them. So we're not really seeing much of that down here, at least on my side.
Well, that's a good thing.
But yeah, it's also a major problem though in other parts of the country. But those are, hidden in plain sight. You don't see those girls because they're not It's not like a residential brothel. You don't see them on the side of the street selling themselves.
Right.
So I think those are harder to find.
Now, with what you guys see there at Glory House in Dade County, and I know you probably actually technically service more than just Dade. I'm sure Broward contributes.
Oh, of course.
I'm familiar with the area. I used to live down there. It just seems to me that one of the hardest aspects in trying to provide the help and services that these women and children need would be the trust factor that you have to build with them. I'm sure that by the time that you guys get to them, that they have been just completely abused to the point where trusting anybody has to be difficult.
Oh, for sure. We deal with that a lot, and we know how to deal with that. I think a misconception is that these girls want to be rescued, that they perceive themselves as victims, but they don't. They think that, selling their body is the way to freedom. They think that because their needs are being met, there are no rules in their mind, where they are. They can do drugs, They can drink, they can sleep with whoever they want, and they don't have a mom or a dad, down their throat. I think they think that that's their ticket to freedom. I had one 21-year-old a couple weeks ago that I was talking to, and she had been abused, like the majority of them, as a child, and starting at 5 years old. And as I was talking to her, she was saying, "But I can provide for my own needs. I can, if I sleep with this guy in one, or these handful of guys in this one night, I make as much as you do in 2 weeks in one night." So it's really hard to convince them that they are victims of their own circumstance. So, sorry, my brain's going 1,000 miles a minute. A misconception about what people think when we go into, when we are able to contact the girls is, "Oh, thank God you're here. Thank God you're rescuing me. Oh, this is so great. I'm going to listen to you because I totally trust you." No, that's not how it works. We get a lot of them, and what it is basically is we just have to be there. We just have to put up with, with their trauma, I guess. They're going to be fighting. They're going to fight us, for the first 3, 6, 9 months, until they can develop that trust in us that we're not going to, exploit them. And unfortunately, a lot of different places have exploited them, including some other homes.
Oh, that's horrible. That is horrible. So basically what you see is some kind of, I don't know, for maybe lack of a better term, almost like a Stockholm kind of syndrome with them?
Yes.
And that's
yes.
It really is.
Because they switch between pimps so often, many of them do, a lot of them don't, but they have this perception that their pimp is their daddy. I mean, and that's actually what they're told to call their pimp. Oh, daddy this and daddy that.
Wow.
They're pimps and there's a book called Pimpology, and it was written by a pimp who ended up in jail because of this book that he wrote. He basically outed himself. He was writing it to other pimps on how to break down a victim, how to break down a girl mentally, to make her psychologically dependent on you so that that she's not going to run away.
That's unbelievable. Well, I guess that answers a lot of one of the questions I was going to ask you, which basically was, how is it in this day and time that the quote-unquote modern liberated woman, whether you're of a liberal mind or a conservative mind, I mean, we have to admit that women have definitely in the last half century come a long, long way from where they were as far as how they function in the world and what they contribute to the world. As far as the global industries are concerned, how is it that these modern, intelligent, and even in some cases tech-savvy women allow themselves to get recruited into this industry?
Yeah, that's kind of a complicated, complex issue because the majority of them that I have spoken to they're seeking love. That's basically what it is. I mean, these are not people who are completely fulfilled with high self-esteem that go, hey, I'm going to go out there and sell my body and, allow myself to be prostituted by some other guy who's threatening to kill my family if I try and run away. That's what they're seeking is ultimately love, something that they never got as children. They've been sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally neglected, their entire lives. And that's, at that moment in their life as a teenager, when, that's when young girls and boys, but I'm speaking of girls because that's what we deal with. That's when, their development is, I guess that's where they're trying to figure out who they are in the world. So
Sure.
When you break it down psychologically, they're trying to find any which way to fulfill that void. And, the majority of them get in because a friend says, hey, a friend from school, oh, hey, come here, listen, I talked to one girl and she said, I think she was 14, and her friend said, and I'm just going to be blunt here because this is the type of verbiage that they use.
No, go ahead.
She said, hey, why don't you, if you need to, her dad left, he was an alcoholic, and her mom was, emotionally not there, and so she's 14 and a freshman in high school. And a friend of hers said, hey, listen, if you need money, you don't have to get a job. All you have to do is, give this guy a blowjob for $200. And she's like, hey, you know what? That might work. And she said,
Wow.
as she was doing it the first time, she thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But then she continued because the money started coming in. And she felt like, the guys were giving her something that she was seeking all along. But it was fleeting. It was kind of like a drug.
Yeah.
And then, of course, drugs they play a huge part in it, too. Because as they continue to do this, part of their soul, they basically sell a part of their soul every time they do it, every time they turn a trick. So they do drugs. They get drunk to try and numb all of that. And then they get caught up with, we call them popcorn pimps. They are just like the little guys who are, they might have like 2 or 3 girls that they prostitute. But then, the girls get further and further into it. And then they start to get the pimps that are on the Eastern Seaboard Circuit. They're the ones who travel. They have more contacts. They have weapons. They have, they're a lot more threatening to the girls.
Okay.
So,
So you're
they get locked into it
into
before they know it.
Work.
I'm sorry, what?
They basically graduate from doing this on their own into a network seeking bigger money.
Right.
Man.
And that's one aspect of it. You also have girls who are drugged.
Oh yeah.
They might run away, and then
Right.
they might be hanging out with some friends at a party, and somebody spikes their drink, and then that's it. Then they take them to a brothel, and they might rape them, 50 times in one night to try and break them down. One of the pimps told police that I don't understand trafficker mentality, but this kind of gives you a little insight into the depth of the evil. The pimps said, or this one pimp told the cops that arrested him, the younger the girl is, the easier it is to break her down, the less time it has to take. It takes between 7 to 10 days to take a 12 to 14-year-old, brutally rape her over and over and over again, beat her, handcuff her to a bed for 7 to 10 days. And as soon as you see this certain look in her eye where she's just looking straight through you, you know you have her.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. That's unbelievable. Now, okay. And again, these are details that people don't want to hear. These are details that people think, oh, that might be like once in a blue moon. No, this is happening daily. I mean, right now, every minute, a girl is being sold. A young preteen girl is being sold. Right. And just to give people an idea, according, and in all fairness, let me go ahead and disclose that Katie and I have discussed this show a couple of times before going live on the air with it. We've discussed some of the things that I looked into for research, and we're going to disclose some of that to you starting right now, actually. What Katie was just talking about, a girl being sold every minute, that's basically a pretty darn accurate number according to the United Nations and the United States, who have both done extensive studies on this topic. And unfortunately, I think they've done more in the way of study than they have done prevention. But we'll get into that a little later. But one of the things I was going to ask was how these women become so controlled and driven into that state of submission. And like you just covered, the studies show that the methods used to control women in this, I hate to call it an industry, but for lack of a better word, I mean criminal industry. But right. It is that. But basically, the methods used to control these women are denial of freedom and movement. They isolate them. They control their money, threats, intimidation, drugs and alcohol, exposure to pornographic films, and the physical and sexual violence. And according to a joint study that was done by the University of Rhode Island and UMass Amherst, they said some women were held captive and were not free until they paid off accumulated debts that, of course, only grew exponentially over time. These quote unquote traffickers / pimps, they bill them for everything under the sun, and they tell them that they owe for this. And the majority of law enforcement, according to the study, 76%, and social service providers and advocates and researchers confirm that a large number of women were not free to leave the industry. And, pimps control most of the money, and with many of the international women, they say 36 to 38% of international women had their money controlled by pimps, whereas in the U.S., that staggering statistic was 76%. So there's definitely no freedom for these women once they're in, at least not without, I guess you would say, an outside force, coaxing that freedom. But now, once you guys are taking care of these women, I mean, obviously I say obviously, may not be obvious to everybody, but there are health concerns that you guys have to deal with these women and children, for that matter. So other than the obvious, the HIV, AIDS, STDs, what other health concerns do you guys have to deal with in helping these women cope back into society?
I think the biggest concern that we have regarding their health is their mental health, because that basically, controls their future. What we're trying to do is get them back on their feet, get them healthy, give them, build their self-esteem so that they understand that they're valuable. So, we kind of help them help themselves. I think the STDs and the physical health issues are the least of our worries, because, if the pimp still has them psychologically wrapped up, they're going to go back. So we have to give them that, I guess we have to fill that void so that they don't run back to their pimp or run back to another one or go back to that lifestyle, because that kind of lifestyle is normal for them. That's the most secure, as crazy as that sounds, life that they have ever lived.
That is
so
crazy.
Health issues, legal issues, a lot of them are testifying against their pimps. And, thank God now we are becoming, the laws are changing to become more victim focused. Before it was, 5 years ago even 3 years ago, it was, the police would arrest the girls, put them in jail for prostitution, which is only doing more damage, more trauma.
Right.
And then forcing the girls to go and testify against their pimp, who just said, if you ever testify against me, I'm going to find your family and kill them. So thank God we're becoming a more victim-centered nation, I guess. So what we're doing is giving them the mental health coverage that they need right away, so they can go and testify against the pimp.
So with these women, with these victims, do we see things? I mean, obviously, once their state of mind begins to improve, there has to be a lot of emotion that really weighs on them. A lot of probably, and I'm guessing here. I don't know. I'm not the expert, obviously, but I would think some kind of either anger or rage or depression, something along those lines.
Well, that all stems from the post-traumatic stress disorder that they have. They say PTSD in human trafficking victims is almost identical to PTSD in war veterans. So, of course, there's going to be anger. They're going to have flashbacks. They're not going to be able to sleep at night. They're going to have nightmares. So we deal with all that too. But, yeah, we do see a lot of anger in them. With the PTSD, if, one girl was driving in the car with her, what we call a big sister, we have, looked over, or the big sister looked at she saw a car that was a yellow, what are they called? Not a Transit, a Mustang or whatever it is, Camaro. And she said, oh, look, it's like Bumblebee. And the girl immediately shut down. And, you can have that. You can have, her screaming, like, cussing at her. Why would you say that? Just extreme paranoia. When they got back to the house, she said, she confronted the girl and said, I'm sorry, I don't know what I said. And the girl said, no, it's that's what my pimp used to call his car. So, there's a lot of that from PTSD.
Yeah. And the statistic that the State Department used in their 2015 report was that nearly 65% of these women said that they had tried to either hurt or kill themselves. Do you guys see that kind of percentage in these women, or do you even get into that part of it? Or
I kind of have to pat us on the back because of the approach that we're taking, which is not a very common one. We focus on the spiritual aspect as well, and
outstanding
on top of the emotional, and we haven't seen any of that. I don't know why, but I guess the approach that we're taking is working. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that is common with a lot of others. I have heard of victims or survivors trying to commit suicide because they just can't take the PTSD or the depression or the anger, and, they see no hope in life. But one of our main goals right off the bat is to try and show them that they do have, they were created for a purpose. They do have a future. So we don't really see much of that, but I have heard.
Okay, well, that's great. Katie, I'm going to ask if you can stay online. We need to take a break. We're at the bottom of the hour. We got bills to pay, obviously. So if we can get you to hold on, I would love to carry this conversation further and further.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Producer, roll the commercial break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes, folks.
Oh, but ain't that America? You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby, ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
Wake up, America.
The biggest threat in those days were from factions seizing control of the governing apparatus and making decisions that were in their interests. Today, we call factions political parties. George Washington himself warned the nation about the dangers of factions in his farewell address.
Office hours with Dr. A, 3 p.m. on Sundays, K98 Talk. We've got something to say to you, America.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
Hey everybody, this is Jason, host of According to Me. I'd like to invite you to check out my show. It's a 2-hour show that lasts 60 minutes in... listen, I hate to interrupt, but one thing I can do is read off a script. Just say, let me be clear a lot. It works. President Obama, I can handle this. It's a radio promo. I'm not green. I've done this before. Did someone say green? Now, Al Gore is here. Listen, I'm just trying to record a radio promo. Do you mind? Now, do you say good things about me on the show? No, not at all. But if it makes you feel any better, I rip on Republicans just as much. The AM radio frequencies give off very high levels of radiation. Look, my show is on the internet, which you invented. Can I just do my promo? I got a pen. I can veto that, you know. I know you got a pen. It's not a law. It's a radio promo. Listen, just listen to my show. Barack Obama and Al Gore hate it, so you're going to love it. Here's an executive order. Don't listen to his show. He doesn't like me. He's racist. And he doesn't recycle either. That's it. I'm done. It's According to Me, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on K98 Talk.
Oh, but ain't that America? You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby, ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are still on with Katie from Glory House in Dade County. Pardon my cracking voice. So when we left off, we were just kind of wrapping up about what Katie sees there at Glory House specifically, comparing that to what the State Department says actually happens, which, folks, I have to tell you, I downloaded the PDF of the State Department annual human trafficking report, and I just, after looking at their report, and that's what it really reminded me of. Was it reminded me of a middle school book report. There were a lot of stock photos, things that not happy people, but not what you would expect to see in the world of human and sex trafficking either, in the way of the photos. And the data is suspect at best. It really is. And it's really disappointing that our government, who claims to do so much, and actually we do a lot, but we do a lot compared to other countries. We don't really do a whole lot, if you get what I'm saying. There's so much more that needs to be done on this front, in this field, to make it end. And it does, it needs to end, and the sooner the better. Yesterday wouldn't be soon enough. Now, Katie is still with us. Katie, without going into huge specifics, Glory House sees roughly how many victims a year come through your doors?
Oh, man.
Just ballpark it.
Right now, about 30. That's a really hard number to calculate.
Okay.
Because we touch on, we reach out to a lot of women, but to give them the actual help that they need, maybe 20.
Yeah.
It's hard to gauge because they have to be ready.
Oh,
it's
sure.
not like you can just go in and pull them out. They have to be willing. It's like an abused woman. It takes her almost 7 times of leaving and going back to finally decide to leave.
Man, just seems so hard to believe that it's such hard work to convince them to get out.
Well, I think that's why it takes a special kind of person to do it, because so many people would get frustrated. Just think of having a child or having a family member that continues to mess up, and you can see the way out, and you're trying to reach them, and finally most people just get fed up and say, forget it. Imagine doing that for somebody that you don't even know.
Yeah.
A lot of people just give up on them. They get angry with them, but it's the trauma that's causing this.
Sure. Well, look, according to our State Department, again, whose numbers I call suspect, they estimate that 50,000 women and children are trafficked into the United States each year. And they're saying that primarily they come from Latin American countries, Russia, the new independent states outside of Russia, and Southeast Asia. This is the International Organization of Migration that attempts to estimate these numbers of trafficked women in Europe and the European Union, and concluded that accurate numbers are not possible in Europe. So they won't
accurate
even
numbers are not possible here either.
I'm sorry, say that again, Katie?
I just said accurate numbers anywhere are not possible. They're not possible in the United States either.
Sure. I get that, a lot of these, well, let's see what this says right here. INS, our Immigration and Naturalization Service, says that last year alone now, they discovered over 250 brothels in 26 different cities that involved trafficking. And the INS uses reports that are often a combination of their field reports and newspaper accounts. Now, folks, this is how bad this is, okay? Our government is relying on journalists to publish accurate and timely stories about trafficking so that they can incorporate it into their official government statistics. This is
tell me that
the
doesn't
insanity
raise a
with.
huge red flag.
Yeah, that's a problem. And yet our government rates itself as a tier 1 country, according to the PTVA, which is the Protection of Trafficking Victims Act of 2000, which I believe was actually initiated under Bill Clinton's administration. I will give kudos to President Clinton for that. It needed to be done, but as I've said a couple of times already tonight, there is so much more that needs to be done.
Yes,
I noticed
Mr. Clinton, the one who's flying on planes.
Yes, that includes.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Yeah, that was a rough subject, and I covered that a few weeks back. But we don't have to go into that part tonight. But yes, we do know that it happens with him. Katie, I noticed on Glory House's website, Glory House says that the trafficking business in Dade County alone generates $200+ million a year. That's staggering.
Yes.
Considering that our government estimates that in America that it only generates about $500 million.
No.
Yeah, there's something wrong somewhere. There's a disconnect in the data.
Well, there's a disconnect in the 2015 tip report because the other countries that were involved in that were, the psychologists that were involved were telling the State Department, these are not accurate. These certain countries that, lo and behold, we have, I can't remember the word now. I guess we have connections with political ties to our quote unquote allies.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
These are countries that they have bumped up to tier 2. They're tier 3 countries when it comes to protecting the victims and getting laws in place to protect them. But these countries, the psychologists that were on the board of the tip report were telling the State Department, this is not accurate. These numbers are not accurate. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing to be bumped up to tier 2. So
right.
That raises a huge red flag in my mind. Why did they do that? Who's to say that we should be a tier 1 country? Because the way that I see it, we're a tier 3. We're still on the bottom. Why are our children being trafficked? Why is our foster care system so bad and nobody can do anything about it? Why aren't we protecting our own children? These
Right.
are citizens that were born here.
Oh, absolutely. And for those that don't know about the tier that we're talking about, I'm trying to scroll to it here in my notes. I've actually got the tiers. Yeah, okay. A tier 1 country is, quote, and now this is according to this gigantic treaty that all these 64 countries signed on to back in 2000. The definition of a tier 1 country, and this is supposed to be the cream of the crop, is the governments of countries that fully comply with the TVPA's minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking. So according to this, the United States fully complies with the minimum standards of the TVPA. All I can say is that the minimum standards must just be bare minimum. And of the 64 countries that are part of this agreement, only 13 of them are tier 1. Now, tier 2 are governments of countries that do not fully comply with TVPA's minimum standards, but are making quote unquote significant efforts to bring themselves into compliance with those standards. Now, Katie, you know a lot more about this than I do, obviously. You're in the trenches every day. Tier 1 and Tier 2, is there really much of a difference?
No.
And
no, they're very blurred lines.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as far as that goes, if a country says, "Oh yeah, we're on it. See our paperwork. See, yeah, this is what we have to put in place," whether it's done yet or not, that's what determines whatever tier they're in.
Right. So what the State Department doesn't provide is what these minimum standards are. I don't have that data in front of me, but I will be doing some more research into this. I definitely don't know what the minimum standards are per TVPA, but we're going to find out about it, and we're going to start raising more and more awareness based on those minimum standards, because I have a feeling that, like Katie said, our government's falling flat, and they're fluffing this piece up to make themselves look better, like they're the world leader in trafficking elimination. So,
well, I mean, I think that's what they do with everything else anyway. So,
well, I think that's pretty
I have no faith
too.
in them with this.
Yeah. So, man, the time is flying. Wow. You were right, Katie. This is such a vast subject. We may have to do a follow-on or two. I just don't know how we'd get enough data out there to everybody to even raise the right awareness without it. But as we start winding down here, what do you guys at Glory House specifically, what do you need from the community? And even, I know we're trying to avoid the government, but what could the government provide to help make things better without adding the ridiculous stipulations?
Well, I think Florida is leading in trafficking laws and educating law enforcement. We have a lot of FBI here working behind the scenes also, informing the community, just getting education, getting the community educated on how to recognize a trafficking victim. I told Jody and Diane this. Last year, I was with my oldest son. We were at a Halloween store, and there was a girl who looked maybe 14-ish. She was in super short shorts, the kind that look like a bikini, with this little crop top, tube top thing on. She had a tattoo on her back, and I think one on her arm. And she was looking at her phone. She was probably about 14.
And tattooed?
Maybe 15. Yes. So
oh my God.
I'm looking at her, and all of a sudden it hit me. And I'm like, this girl is a victim. So I'm watching her body language, and she's looking down at her phone and looking around like she's nervous, which is very common. If her pimp is like, hey, you better have your phone on you, you better be paying attention.
Right.
So she's looking down, she's looking around for her pimp or for somebody. So I paused, and I waited about 5-10 minutes until whoever her ride was or who she was looking for came to pick her up. And this mom with her, I guess, teenage daughter comes out of the store, and I see her looking at the girl. And me, I'm in protection mode because I'm like, oh my God, there's a victim. I need to, rescue her. So then this other mom comes out, and she's looking, and I hear her talking to her daughter like, oh my God, do you see what she's wearing? I can't even believe she's dressed like that. Like, just making these nasty comments. And I got so angry because I'm like, if this woman only knew her heart would be so changed because this kid could be her daughter. You know, she could be, this is somebody's daughter that she's looking at mocking, and she doesn't even realize that this girl is locked up in human trafficking. So she gets in her car and she leaves. So then finally, of course, this pimped out, no pun intended, Escalade drives up with this guy who is obviously a pimp. He comes up, she gets in the car, and they pull away. I take a picture of the license plate. I call the police, make a report, all that. But educating the community is crucial, because if I was not the only one to call, I'm sure that girl would have been saved. But, you know, they had to take my phone call and then send somebody else and maybe talk to me, and it took them like 45 minutes. I mean, it was, if other people can start to recognize this, we could save a lot more people. I mean, that's one aspect, is just educating yourself. Therefore, you can educate other people. And money. Basically, the community needs to donate. I mean, you know, I don't want to sound like a preacher and you have to give all your money to the church. But really, if you want to see these girls, if you want to see your community abolish slavery today, you have to be willing to give up some money or donate your time at these places. I mean, become a volunteer. We have to, you know, it takes money to run a house. You know, this doesn't just come for free.
And I noticed on Glory House's website, you're just about all volunteers there, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
So that's, I
mean, yes,
that's
and
it's commendable.
The psychologist is pro bono. The doctor, the dentist, the lawyer that we use, I mean, you know, these people are donating their time for free to help these girls.
And we're getting pushed up against the time block here, but I've noticed that you guys also do have some corporate partners. You know, for anybody out there that's running a business, you don't have to be a Bloomingdale's. I saw their name particularly on the webpage, but you don't have to be a big Bloomingdale's to help out places like Glory House. You know, small gifts are welcome just as well as big ones, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
you know, that's, even small gifts can buy an interview outfit for the girl to go and take the first step into her destiny.
There you go, folks. And small gifts will feed them too.
Absolutely.
But Katie, like I said, we're getting pushed up against the time bumper here. I want to thank you for spending an hour with us this evening on this terribly troubling topic.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no, absolutely. And for those out there listening, if they have questions or want to ask you something, where can they find you on social media to do that?
They can find me on Twitter at GH_KatyJ. I'll answer any questions.
Okay, folks. Well, there you have it. Katie, again, thank you for coming on tonight and spending the time. I would love to put a follow-on show together with you in the near future. We can delve a little deeper into this, and maybe I won't occupy you for the whole hour, but I would definitely love to raise more awareness on this topic. And like I said, it really just needs to stop, and the sooner the better. So
absolutely.
Again, live from Dade County, Katie, thank you again. And folks, I am going to be kicking the ball here. It is time to welcome Jason DeWilkins with According to Me. I'm not sure if Bunny's with him tonight, but I hope so. And I will see all of you next week live right here on the Conservative Curmudgeon Show. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to contact, if not Glory House in Miami, find some nonprofit local that's helping these trafficking victims, and do what you can for them, folks. Absolutely, I cannot stress it enough. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless. We'll see you next week.
Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights. We're Americans.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get